Well, to start off, we'd love to just start with you having you state your name and what you do in your own words for the audience.
So my name is Freekbass, and grew up here in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm a musician, specifically a bass player, probably most known for that. And, we, myself, Freekbass and the Bump Assembly, my band, and then also myself, tour all over the States and actually sometimes out of the United States too as well. So we're, the last couple of years obviously been kind of a little crazy with the pandemic in terms of being on the road, but things are starting to slowly kind of start getting back to normal again and starting to get out there and make a little bit of noise too as well. And then during that time period also, which we can talk about, I've kind of discovered a lot of new online places to make music too, which is pretty cool. I just got back from TwitchCon in San Diego, so I'll tell you guys about that as we continue the conversation.
Yeah, that was on my list of things that we need to cover because on our background, I had heard about this, but I'm not familiar. I know what Twitch is. Let me backtrack a little bit. But I didn't know that musicians are on Twitch and, streaming your music. I always knew it from like a gaming standpoint.
Sure. And that's how it started. It started as a gaming thing back in 2012, 2013. And, around, I guess, 2014, 2015, some musicians started migrating over to it and it just kind of started picking up steam. And now there's this whole huge music community on Twitch. It really blew up during the pandemic because everybody was at home, and but yeah, it's an amazing community now. Twitch actually has like at TwitchCon this year, which I mentioned I just got back from, which was out in San Diego. They actually have a designated music area now as part of the convention too, which is the first year they did that. So they actually have a music staff now. I actually have a guy at Twitch that's kind of acts as my Twitch manager, helps me deal with putting things together. I'm on there a few times a week, mostly streaming and playing, but I also have a show on Mondays called Monday Bass Blast where I do bass lessons and I have different other name bass players on the show. And it's a trip. It's different than live streaming's obviously been around forever on the web, but it's Twitch is different because when you go on Twitch, at the minimum, you're on for 2 hours. I just did a 24-hour stream a couple weeks ago. Now that's not something I'll do once a year, And in theory, it was this is going to be great. I'll just be in one spot. I won't be. And when I got to about hour 19 or 20, it was pretty crazy. But the thing that's wild though, and specifically about that particular stream, is Twitch is so international, you start hitting other pieces of the world. Like, for instance, when it got to be about 3 a.m, all of a sudden all these people from the UK started coming in Japan and different world and stuff like that. So super, super international. And the reason you're on so long, because, you're playing and stuff, but you're really connecting with just like you and I are having this conversation right now. I'll play a song and then for another 20 minutes, I'll just talk to everybody. It's in the chat. So they're chatting back to you. They have emotes. They have different little ways they can go in there and you're just going back and forth. And then you have people that subscribe to your channel and that it's, there's a lot of people, that's their full-time job is being a Twitch streamer, So I kind of incorporate in everything else I do, but it's a pretty amazing thing. And I just started recently, started live streaming on TikTok too. And that's really? And again, every little social media platform is its own thing, So for instance, when I went on Twitch, I was I'll just put the Twitch link over my Facebook page and everybody will jump over there. Doesn't work like that. Some did, but everybody's kind of comfortable in their little social media zones, So you really have to, it's I've been touring for, 15, 20 years, but it was almost kind of starting over again because you're networking and you're building up an audience within this Twitch ecosystem, I guess you could say. And, but it's exciting because the fans that are there, they're there. They're hardcore. And that so far, I'm pretty new to TikTok. I've only been on it for a little bit for TikTok Live. But that's the biggest difference I see between Twitch and TikTok in terms of the live thing. TikTok, you get you'll go on and you'll have 700 to 1,000 people on that, but they last for about 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Twitch, you might have, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 people, but they'll be on there with you for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours at a time. I even had that 24-hour stream I was talking about. I think 6 or 7 people stayed on the entire stream with me. So we sent them out some I sent them an autograph record and a bunch of stuff for staying on with me that whole time. So it's more like the super fan that's on Twitch, you know what I mean, type thing. So it's really cool. It's a whole new world. Now it's very obviously just being on there is time consuming, but it's like, so it's something that now with my touring, it's like, okay, like, you know, the other thing with Twitch and all the platforms is the consistency. So like when I went on the road for like 2 or 3 weeks, a few months ago, we went out to Colorado, New Mexico for some shows. And when I got back, I felt there was a dip, you know, I mean, not big, but you had to almost, because it's almost like a TV show. People like, you know, if they know you're going to be on Thursdays at 9:00, they want to be on it. If you miss a Thursday or miss 2 Thursdays, just like if you're watching a TV show, you kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot that show's on that night. You just kind of, so you have to kind of, the consistency thing is the main thing with those type of things.
Definitely.
You said that the fans can actually communicate with you on there. Is there ever like collaboration where there's actually obviously with super fans, they're probably musicians, possibly even bass musicians.
Yeah.
Is there ever communication where it's like, they're helping you even collaborate with a song? That sounds super fun.
Well, that's a great question. So one of the unique things about everybody does their Twitch channel different. You know, there's a ton of singer-songwriters on there. A lot of times like singer-songwriters will do like, you know, cover other people's material. And if you're a subscriber, you get to request a song or whatever. Now with me, I do all original music on there. But what I do is that if someone's hearing like a groove of mine, I have them type in lyric ideas in the chat and we bring that into, so I'm creating with their lyrics right there as live on air. And we even went another step further a few months ago where some of my hardcore people in the chat, I don't know if you guys know what Discord is, but Discord it's kind of very related to Twitch. Basically like your own little personal community in there. So we have all the people from Twitch go to Discord, and we had a bunch of them actually sample. I gave them some words to say and I sampled their voices and I brought that on my sampler. So they got to actually hear themselves like in the song, like I made them part of the song itself on air, which is pretty neat. Yeah.
That is amazing. Okay, I love that question. And also, and speaking of that, are you able to collaborate with other artists, or do you think that typically like your platform is yours, or have you partnered up with other people on Twitch to?
Yes. Well, like, and getting back to the TwitchCon thing, there's a great streamer on there who was, so when I first got on Twitch, I've been on maybe 2 or 3 months. I'm pretty still a newbie to Twitch. I've been on about a year. Some people have been on 4, 5, 6, 7 years. But I applied for this thing. They have something called the Collective at Twitch, and it's basically essentially kind of like a mentoring session where they have people, you know, streamers and Twitch staff and all this, and they kind of show you the ropes with Twitch, like in an accelerated way versus you just kind of learning by trial and error. So I literally had been on for Twitch for like 2 or 3 months. I'm like, I'm just going to apply for this. And, you know, they had like 20,000 people apply. So they chose 20. And I was luckily the one to be chose for that group. One of the ladies that was my mentors on there, her name's Megan Lanius, who's incredible. At TwitchCon this year, she put together a super group and we performed never met each other. That was also the very weird thing. I'd known these streamers for almost a year, gotten to be pretty good friends through the group and everything, but you've never met them in person before. So it was like even things like, there was this one guy, his name's Billy, he's from New Zealand, and you know, I'm about 6'1". I figured he was maybe an inch or two tall, shorter than me, but like he got there and he was like, whoa, what's up? Like everybody was like different heights and everything. Yeah, so that now in terms of collaborating online, we can do collabs in terms of pre-recorded stuff, but the internet, unfortunately, is still not quite to the place. Like if you were a drummer and I was a bass player and you were in your studio and I was in mine and you started playing, it just wouldn't sync up. When that happens, and I know we're probably within a year or two away from that, that's a game changer for everything, not just Twitch. I mean, everything, because you can have a band like, say, like Fish or something like that, where one guy could be New York, one could be Vermont. And it's one thing to record a live concert and stream it out and have somebody pay for it there. But when you actually can see live content happening in front of your eyes, that's when it's going to be a game changer, you know. And I think we're pretty close. I mean, it feels like we got to be close to that, but we're not quite there yet. There's still that weird, even if you have great internet and I have great internet speed, there's still that little bit of latency, you know, to where it's like if you were playing drums, I couldn't fully lock with you or whatever. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's interesting.
And it's cool that, I mean, literally you're playing music with someone from New Zealand. People are streaming you from Japan or anywhere in the world. But your roots are here in Cincinnati, I believe. What's your Cincinnati origin story?
Yeah, so I mean, I wear it pretty hardcore on my sleeve. I mean, I always tell people that I'm sure if I was born in a different part of the world, I would still be playing music for sure, but I'm not sure if I'd necessarily be playing funk. I mean, growing up here in Cincinnati, Ohio, I'm sure you all know, it's got a very, very rich funk history. I was lucky enough, my first 3 albums were produced by Bootsy Collins, you know, who's recorded here. It's obviously from Cincinnati, and he got obviously discovered by James Brown and his era there in Cincinnati. Yeah, I mean, I think Cincinnati is like, you know, people don't realize how deep and rich the music history is here, you know. I mean, almost every single James Brown hit was recorded here in Cincinnati at King Records. You know, all the funk bands between here and Dayton, Ohio, it's just like goes on and on and on. So that really got into, like, you know, I was say, like, you know, when I was growing up and my friends were listening to like Green Day and Nirvana and stuff like that, I was listening to like P-Funk and Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and stuff because they were sampling all that stuff. So that was kind of, and I think from growing up here in Cincinnati, Ohio, that has a huge part of that too as well. And Ohio's funk is interesting because it's very like regional sounding too. Like there's New Orleans style funk, which is like which is more like the meters, and it's got kind of more of a shuffle and a swing to it. There's the Minneapolis sound, which is like, you know, Prince and that whole thing. And then Ohio, I always say, because we're like that kid in the back of the classroom that has to like rate. We're not New York, we're not LA, so we got to kind of like, you know, draw attention to ourselves. So like we play everything like a little heavier than the person does. Like if they'd say, play it on the one, well, we're going to really play it on the one, you know, just so people pay attention to us, you know.
I love that. I didn't know that, but now it makes sense.
Yeah.
James Brown is the hardest working man in show business, right? That was his kind of nickname.
Now James originally is from Augusta, Georgia, right? But King Records was here, which is what his label was here. Yeah.
Brad was saying that anytime he has visitors that come into Cincinnati, they're like, why is there a James Brown mural downtown? That makes no sense. And so the backstory of that is really cool. And you mentioned it before. Many people think you have to live in New York, you have to live in LA to have a music career, but you've made your home here, but yet you've thrived as an independent artist and you're growing like a national fan base. What do you think it's like for, you know, being in Cincinnati, if there's any challenges or differences than say being like in a big city? Obviously there's some advantages and disadvantages.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I don't care where you're at in the world. To be an artist, a musician, you have to be in multiple things now to have a career at music. And I don't care I mean, from Elton John all down, you have to. It's not like Elton John just tours and that's all he does. You know, it's like you have to, whatever you do, you have to. So, and in that case, you know, especially when we're talking about the online stuff, I mean, I could be in the middle of Idaho and it wouldn't make any difference really with the online things, you know. You know, as long as you tour, and, you know, again, you try to, you know, reach out in ways like online things and stuff like that. I don't really think it matters so much where you live as much anymore. Yeah, there are definitely advantages. I have a ton of friends. My singer, Sammy, she lives in New York City, and there's, you know, there's still always something about meeting with someone face to face. And like if you're talking to someone and you can go out and have lunch with them and you're in the same spot, that's just a different type of connection, just like we were having this right here. So there's that advantage. But on the other side, you're paying about 5 times the amount of rent for that advantage too as well. Right. And especially if you tour a lot. Like I have so many friends that are on the road all the time and they live in New York City. I'm like, why are you paying like thousands and thousands of dollars for this apartment when you're barely even there? When if you just moved, you know, 30 miles south or north, you could pay and it wouldn't even make any difference, you know? So, and you know, a lot of them realize that too. So there's the disadvantages and advantages of all sides of it for sure. But I think, you know, I think you can have a career in music. I mean, I'll stay on that because that's what I'm into. I think as long as you, again, just multi-process and, and just, you just can't say, okay, I'm just going to tour, I'm just going to write songs, or I'm just going to live stream on Twitch, or I'm just going to, whatever the case may be, you got to do it all. Now, that's great, but literally this, like, my life is just, even that I'm at home, like 80% of the time when I'm not touring, it's like my days are just insane. It's like, I'm even before I'm coming down here today, I'm like running around like, oh my gosh, I got 20 minutes to get, go do it and everything. And it's like, because you're like every single hour feels like it's spoken for, because you have these, you just have to, every part of your day, and you're your own boss too, and that's a discipline thing too as well. So, so it makes life a little crazy. I mean, very inspirational, but just a little, just like all the time. So, I enjoy those days I can sit in front of a TV and just veg out, which seem like less and less anymore. So, yeah.
Was there a particular experience or maybe a person that inspired you to go into music?
Well, in terms of being like specifically a bass player, I'll start there, because I'm influenced by so many people, obviously. Yeah. But when I was a kid, there was a music school. I think it's still there. It's in Upper Northern Ohio called Oberlin Music College. It's like a private music school. I'm pretty sure Oberlin's still there. I think so. And there was their jazz band. They were touring around to like grade schools and middle schools and stuff like that. I think I was in like 5th or 6th grade, and they stuck me, I happened to be just as close as you are to me right now, in front of the bass player, like the electric bass player. And I was freaking mesmerized, like the sound that was coming out of it, the look of it, the thickness of it, the rhythm, because I started off as a drummer first and then moved over to bass, and just like everything, it was very, very hypnotic to me. And I still remember that like it was yesterday, even then I was probably 10 years old or something. And so don't know the gentleman's name who's playing bass, because he was just a person there. I remember what he looks like. I remember what the bass looks like. I remember all that stuff. And so that was where kind of like, I feel like I just kind of got the music, but where it kind of bit me, and specifically bass too. Like there's when I interview a lot of bass players, and a lot of times it's a very common thing for bass players. They want to be guitar players. There was already a guitar player in the band. So, hey, why don't you go play bass? And it's like a second choice thing. And with me, it was never second choice. I was always like really drawn to the looks of it. Like I play a lot of guitar now, and I teach guitar too as well. But even now, guitar, I always feel like if I play it too hard, I'm going to break it or something like that. Like I like bass because it was like thick, and you can, and the sound was really deep that came out of it too as well. So, so that's influence there. I mean, obviously going back to the funk thing, when I got to meet and work with Bootsy Collins, that was still, even today when I think about it, it's like, that is just weird. This like, kid working with like a funk legend like this, and he's just an amazing person. He taught me so much about the music business, a lot of doors, which I hopefully would have gotten through on my own at some point, but he just gave me the keys, and I got to get through some of those doors a little quicker too as well. So just an amazing person, and I highly recommend you get him on the show, obviously.
It was so funny. Ann mentioned, and I think there was another producer in here that mentioned that you have connection, and we were like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. And when
that's Cincinnati royalty.
Right, yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
When I was in high school, actually, my dad gave me an old Seagull, and I had tried to play it, and my friend was actually a bassist, and I tell you what, it is a completely different feeling.
Like, for sure.
It's crazy, the difference. But speaking of how you got your start, how did you come up with the name? Because we both love the name Freekbass, and we're bass is in it, but how did you like nail that name?
Well, that was Bootsy. Bootsy actually gave me that name.
Yeah.
So I was kind of the Cliff Notes story is one of the first times I was over at his studio working. I was there playing bass. Another friend of mine was over there playing guitar. We were both named Chris, and I think I don't think, he could remember our names real good, because there were two of us, and it was kind of like, so I kept plugging in. He had all these effects and all this stuff happening, and then he's behind the board. He was engineering and producing the session we were on, and he's like, man, you got that like freaky bass thing going on, that's like, and then he said that, and then it kind of turned into, as the day and session went on, he's like, hey, Freekbass, why don't you cut? Like, so he just started calling me, and then everybody in the room started calling me Freekbass because it was easier for them to remember, I guess. And then it just kind of stuck, So the name is directly, related to Bootsy, which is neat because I don't know if you guys know who Babyface is, kind of a big, legendary songwriter who's from Cincinnati. Well, he's originally from Indiana, but he got his start here in Cincinnati. Bootsy gave him his name too as well. So he's got an affinity for naming musicians. Yes.
I think Babyface has a highway named after him in Indy. When I lived in Indy previous to this,
I think you're right about that. Yeah.
That's so cool. You can thank the other Chris for that, and thank your mom for calling you Chris.
I know. My mom doesn't even call me Chris. She makes birthday cakes with Freekbass on them now and everything. So it's weird when I hear actually Chris now because it's like it just like I was like, did I know you when I was like 10 or something? Like how do I like it? So no one outside of Cincinnati really knows that much. So it's kind of like the Clark Kent Superman thing, Yeah.
That's amazing.
I do love that. So I would love to hear more about what inspires you specifically about Cincinnati, the city. And you've mentioned this a little bit, like why you choose to live here, but what neighborhood did you grow up in?
I'm a hardcore East Sider still, big time.
Me too.
The West Side. You could put me in the middle of Montana, and I could find my way around easier than the West Side of Cincinnati. It's like a different. If you're from there, I apologize.
I'm from Indiana originally.
Okay, got it.
That's the far West Side.
Yeah, that is very, very West. East Side, like Marymount, Fairfax area. From there. My dad was a fireman in Marymount Fire Department when I was a real little kid, and mom still lives out that direction. So grew up here, and like I said, I wear it pretty hardcore. You could say I wear it even on my hat. Well, it's Ohio, but I wear it pretty hardcore. I've got a little chip on my shoulder with a lot of my musician friends because I'm like, because a lot of them are from New York and a lot of them from LA, and I'm like, we know what we're doing here in Cincinnati too as well. So yeah.
What do you think? As far as that, there's a ton of obviously misconceptions about the city, but what do you tell people who specifically doubt the city and they've never even been here? That's what's so funny to me is most people have not even stepped foot. And I lived out in LA for quite some time, and I will never forget when people are like, "Oh, you're from the cornfields." I'm like, this is actually a city. Like,
right.
And it's usually more populous than where they grew up. Marymount is right outside of the city.
Yeah,
you're like 15 minutes away from the heart.
Right.
So I guess that's one of my questions I love asking the guests is what's your comeback to that?
Well, I mean, I always immediately throw the music thing right back at them.
Yeah.
I'm like, James Brown is, these songs, and then so the song's like, well, yeah, that was recorded in Cincinnati, So the music history thing is always like a good even out the table pretty quickly there too as well. So, but yeah, I mean, it's it's to people they think it's flyover country here for sure. Yeah. So, and again, and I think we all, if we grow up here and we're still here, it's like everybody has a little bit of that chip on their shoulder. So, but it's fun. I mean, I can't tell you how many, and it's so weird. The show was on I think in the 70s or like early 80s. It's like, it's always Cincinnati here. It's either WKRP in Cincinnati, that Pete Rose, or, those are the two probably the biggest ones I'll hear the most when I'm on the road. It's like, oh yeah, it's where Pete Rose is from, or is that radio station still there?
Or
it's like,
that chili, the thing that you call
we got the chili thing too. Yep, the chili thing too. Yeah,
that's more of a sauce.
Yeah.
You're from here. Do you like Skyline?
Well,
chili?
I did. So I'm a vegan. So
okay. You get a pass.
Yeah, I think Gold Star has vegetarian.
I know, and I haven't tried it yet, but I heard it's really good.
Okay, I was going to say I wasn't sure if it was vegan or not.
Well, I think if you get it without the cheese, it'll be vegan. Yeah.
Ooh.
So I do need to try that. Yeah, but it's so easy nowadays to be like. Burger King has the Impossible Burger, which is so good. Of course, there's Chipotle. They have like tons of vegan options. I mean, it's even 4 or 5 years ago, it's a lot different than it is now. When you go to Kroger's or whatever, there's anything you think of, there's a vegan option. Cheesecake, whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice. I was diagnosed when I was really young with gluten and dairy allergy, and It back then, I mean, you would try to get gluten-free bread and it tastes like paper. Like
Right.
it was just, there's no options, and it's gotten even better. But
that's how mayonnaise used to be so nasty, vegan nasty. But now Hellmann's makes a vegan mayonnaise that is I mean, I haven't had it in a few years, so maybe like if someone that normally has mayonnaise has it, they might feel different. But to me, if I remember, it tastes exactly like mayonnaise. Doesn't mean it's really good for you, but it is vegan, So Oreos are vegan too, by the way. That's a nice little fun fact. Yes.
I would probably eat a lot more Oreos if I
Yeah. And there's that little mental thing that, so that means they're good for you, right? No, they're still not good for you, but they are vegan. Yeah.
When you're playing locally, like what's your favorite venue in Cincinnati?
Oh my gosh, and that's another really cool thing about here is how many cool venues there are here. We play Ludlow Garage a lot. We play the Southgate House, which I love the Southgate House, Ludlow Garage, Madison Theater. I mean, they're just so Urban Artifact. They're just, now I haven't played, I've seen my friends play at Ghost Baby downtown, which is I heard I've been actually did a little video shoot down there. I haven't played there yet, but I love that whole underground aspect of it. So, with the revitalization of downtown, obviously we shot a video just recently at a place called Mecca, which you guys probably know Mecca.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so many incredible spots here on all different levels now too, which is nice too, no matter for, touring musicians or whatever. So it's great. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I will have to connect you with the music manager at Ghost Baby, because we actually started a music nonprofit trying to help individual artists like gain, salaries and cut out basically the bar managers from paying them, because since the 80s it's like $100 a gig, which is not something that you can live off of, but you would be perfect for that venue. And it's so like quaint and romantic and edgy at the same time, and the sound quality in there is amazing. So that's super cool. What do you think? This is kind of a two-step question. What's your most, and this might be difficult to answer, but what's your most memorable show you've ever played in Cincinnati, and then also just in general? Might be tricky.
Yeah, I've played here. Now I only play here a couple times a year because we're on the road so much. But so I was in it right after high school. This is kind of the first band I started, actually, when I started touring with. I was in a funk band called Shag. And we were big band, horn band, all kinds of stuff. But we played Bogarts and sold it out. So selling that out, like, as that was a pretty big deal. I was like, whoa, this is weird. And we kept getting the numbers, kept coming in. They're like, we're almost sold out. And then it sold out. So that was like a pretty, like, oh, wow, you can actually do this, So, and, because I know a lot of national touring acts, even at that point, I knew that like they played there and they maybe have 100 people show up or 200 people show up. And then it's like, we just sold it out just on the buzz of the band. So that was definitely probably one of them. We have every year we do a show. It's one of our we play about twice a year in Cincinnati, and one of them we call it Funksgiving, and it's always the day after Thanksgiving. We've either done it at Southgate House, Revival, or at Ludlow Garage. We've kind of bounced back and forth over the years, and right before the pandemic in 2019, my daughter got up and played on stage she was 13 or 14 at the time, 14 at the time, and got up on stage, and we did Fame by David Bowie, and she got up and played guitar and sang with us. And that's so amazing. It was very freaking surreal too. I'm like sitting there because she wore the same. We kind of had these the whole band had these matching outfits, and we got one for her too. And I'm like, this is so like how does this happen? Because I remember like having her here, and it's like now you're on stage with me. So that was pretty neat. So that's probably that and the Bogart Singer, the two ones that are really stir memories. Yeah,
that would be super memorable. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any other children in?
I have two. I have two girls. I have Izzy, that's the one I was telling you about, that, and then I have another one. She's 10, and her name is Stella, and she's really into music too as well. So yeah,
I love that.
Well, here's a question just for my own personal satisfaction. I have a 9-month-old, and I have no musical talent, so I want him to be able to explore whatever he's interested in. So what would you suggest in the future years if he's showing interest in music? How do I support that?
Well, if he really shows interest in music or anything in the arts, I mean, this kind of goes back to your question about Cincinnati, which I think is super, super cool, which gets overlooked a lot. Cincinnati had the second school for creative and performing arts school in the country. Obviously, the first one was New York with the big fame, New York Performing Arts. But we have the second one, and the SCPA now. I went there my junior and senior year, and I wish I would have gone there the whole year, but I didn't get into it until I was a little bit older. And but that is one of the most incredible schools in the country. I mean, I'm sure you guys probably know. So if they show that, that would be, at least have them maybe go shadow with someone there, and see if it's something that they're interested in. Cause it's like, you're going to like a college level, it's incredible. I mean, it's like when I before I went there, I was like, thought I was like God's gift to bass. And my first day at performing arts, I was like, there's like 10 other one of these around here, which was good for me because it like made me realize like really quick, like, you might have some talent, but there's a lot of freaking talented people in the world. So you got to really, really work. If you're going to make a career at this, you got to work really, really, really hard at it. It's not going to just fall, it's not going to be just an easy thing for you to do that too as well. So I think there's that competition aspect of it because it makes you kind of up your game too as well. And just being around that other creative people is such a strong thing. So for the schooling thing is that, and then, in terms of just encourage them to, do creative things. It's like we really do that. Like both my daughters, I can barely write my name in a straight line, but my daughters are really talented at art too as well. And it's because they would sit there, of course they do iPads and all that kind of stuff too as well, but we try to get them to spend a certain part of the day actually like just creating something, whether it be just drawing or whatever. And now they're both really, really talented at that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
My cousins both went to SCPA, and I'm so jealous now. And it's such a unique high school experience because it's so diverse. It's unlike any other high school in the area. And then to follow that up, we have CCM, the College Conservatory of Music, which is incredibly famous, and there's a ton of talent that comes out of there. And
on the non-musical side, on the fashion side, there's DAAP too as well too. Like I have friends that live in New York City that are grown up in New York that came to CCM for the co-op program so they could work they're from New York, came to Cincinnati, went to DAP so they could co-op in New York, which is weird. It's like they went from here to here so they could go back. It was the weirdest thing, but yeah.
I graduated from the University of Cincinnati, and actually my parents both went to DAP, but it was in like architecture and design. And so I don't know how it skipped a generation. I feel like I can't even draw a stick figure, but I'm like, I always wanted to be an architect and it went into the finance path. But I remember doing Frank Lloyd Wright coloring books like under my dad's drawing table. But the schooling here is incredible. And that's another thing we wanted to highlight on this show is education. So
you were a more cultured kid than I was.
Unfortunately,
I was playing in the dirt and riding bikes.
I was out in the creek too. I will say that. But I really wish I would have followed more in that path. And I think CCM is great. SCPA is great. The other nice thing about that school is it's not just for musicians. They have acting. They even have sound and set like design.
Oh yeah.
Set design.
Well, now they have costume design. I mean, it's like, a lot of people, like even when I went there, like in the tech theater department, I mean, that's probably the most stable part of the entertainment industry. That's where you're always going to have a job. It may not be as glamorous but you're not necessarily going to be a star thing, but that's where, I have so many friends that now work at Playhouse in the Park or outside of the city, too as well, New York or whatever. So yeah. And now they have music business programs, which I'm glad that they didn't have that when I was there. We would have like guest speakers come in and do like master classes with us, but not like they actually have, the business of music class, which is super important in today's environment.
Yeah, because you're literally your own boss. And if you don't have that background, it'd be very hard for a musician to become successful.
Easy to get put in a position where people want to take advantage of you if you don't have the business savvy to say, oh yeah, we'll help you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and there's that. You always have to watch out for that. I mean, it's, don't get me, this is there's a lot of crazy people out in the business music, but you got to definitely keep your eye out for that kind of stuff too. And it's, if you just, like you said, as long as you don't have to be like the best business person in the world, but it's just have some grip on certain things. It's a very good thing too as well. Yeah.
So I know we've talked about some of the venues. What was it like playing the national anthem for FCC, the Hell is Real game?
I should have, that wasn't really a venue because I know you mentioned specifically venue, but that was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. I mean, Sammy and I, my singer, had done the national anthem at Great American Ballpark at 2019. So that was also incredibly cool because, growing up being a Reds fan, that was like definitely a bucket list thing. But to do it just by myself on bass, which is kind of unique anyway, just to do it on, not guitar, but doing it on bass. I mean, Flea did it for the Lakers, and I think that might be the only person I can think of as a bass player, so
cool.
So I was so honored that they thought of me for it, and it couldn't have gone any better at all. I mean, it was like, I was so freaking nervous. I must have played that song. That song is actually, it's not that it's a hard song to play, but like if you're playing like something really complicated, a lot of times if you miss one note here or there, people won't notice. Yeah. Everybody knows that song. Yeah. So if you one note, even if it's simple to play, you hit that one wrong note, everybody in the world is going to know it. So I must have played that like 1,000 times before we did it. But everybody at FC Cincinnati is great. That's such a magical place anyway. I'm sure you all both know. It's like this magical thing that's happened to the city. And to be able to do that on the Hell Is Real game, which was, was like totally sold out. The crowd was crazy. And I'm still thinking about it, and it's just like, whoa, like when I say a picture of it or a video, I'm like, who is that? Like, how did that happen? Yeah. So it was incredible, and I'm very, very grateful for that. Yeah.
I wonder if they can set it up to have like an actual concert, like use it as a outdoor concert venue in that stadium, because it is such a cool stadium.
Didn't the Who play there? I think the Who did. I'm pretty sure. I think that's the only one they've done, but I think that was there. I'm pretty sure.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So right. I think they can. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a great space and new and fresh. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You've mentioned Sammy a few times. So the song "Love in Your Pocket," which I absolutely adore, was produced. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is it Ital? Sure.
Yeah, Ital.
Okay.
Yeah, Ital. Sure. Who's a Cincinnati person too as well.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
With a Grammy.
Yeah, with a Grammy.
Yeah. I didn't know they were from Cincinnati, but I knew they were Grammy-winning songwriter behind the hit like "Smooth."
Yeah.
And then that featured Sammy Garrett as well.
Yeah.
So, what is it like collaborating with these artists that you've had such a long history with, like with Sammy and Ital?
Yeah. I mean, she's, her and I, we knew each other, the circuit that we tour in, funk, jam band, whatever you want to call it. There's, different words for it, but it's basically just like touring live musicians. So she was in a band called Turquoise, and they would tour a lot of the same places
him.
Yeah. So we would tour play a lot of the same festivals. I would sit in with them at festivals and stuff. So we knew each other for a fairly long time. And when Ital and I were working on "Love in Your Pocket," he said, it'd be really cool to get some female vocals on this song. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. And then I was like, I know Sammy pretty well from Turquoise. They were coming, and Turquoise just happened to be coming in town around that time. So him and I went out to the show. I sat in with them. This was at Madison Theater. And then he's like, oh yeah, she's perfect. Let's use her. So we used Sammy, and we really hit it off. And she's kind of a very visual person like I am too as well. So then we're like, oh, that was pretty cool. Let's do another video together. And then long story short, she started touring with me more and more. And then when Turquoise just broke up last, 6-8 months, well, it's probably been almost a year now, I guess. And so now she tours with me full time, too, as well. So along with Riley, another female singer, Riley Commissar, who's also from Cincinnati. And she was basically, I got Riley to do shows with me when Sammy couldn't do. And now that Sammy's doing now, so now we just use them both. Yeah. So it's awesome. Super big and powerful now because we got two female singers and I sing. So the vocals are like pretty big sounding now, which is nice.
I love that. I didn't know they broke up because I just saw them. I think it was just a little over a year ago. It was in like pretty much last summer.
Yeah, that was probably one of their last shows you saw then. Yeah.
Oh, that was so fun. And speaking of that, they were so high energy. You're so high energy. Mm-hmm. And I feel like everyone, even in that show, and Brad and I were talking, and I was like, I feel like Cincinnati is not really a dancing community, but at these shows, the jam bands and the funk bands, like everyone's up on their feet.
Yep.
What is the key to making a successful like groove that makes people just want to dance?
That's a good question. Well, it's very, you're almost like creating hypnosis in a way, I guess. It's very hypnotic. And, obviously the rhythm thing is such a huge part of it, and just getting locked into the rhythm stuff. And like going back to tying this all into James Brown stuff, when I was a bass player growing up and I was getting to be where I was getting to be pretty good and I could show some little fancy stuff, I would hear the James Brown stuff and I'd be like, oh, that's easy. It's 2 or 3 notes. I can play. I played that when I first started, right? And I just kind of brushed it aside. Well, yeah, you can play those 2 or 3 notes 10, 20, 30 seconds, but some of those songs go on for 7, 8 minutes long. Yeah. Can you play 2 notes for 8 minutes and still make them feel interesting and not boring, you know? And that was a hard thing to do at first. I had almost retrained how to play because I kind of took that for granted, how just because you could learn it quickly doesn't mean you can play it efficiently quickly. And so again, having those Cincinnati roots and having around and just doing that type of thing, I think that's a big part of it. Is you get that, again, it's a hypno, and then the audience becomes almost part of the band too, in my opinion. Both, you know, we were talking about Twitch earlier. That's kind of like how the Twitch to me and is the closest to playing live there is, because you kind of have that relationship that you do with a live audience. And so whether it's live in person or it's online or whatever, it's always that relationship between the band and the audience, and then the audience almost becomes part of the music. And then a song that might be 2 or 3 minutes, 4 minutes long can be 10, 12 minutes long, because the energy that you're each giving each other back and forth, it becomes like, it's like a hypnosis almost, is the easiest way I can put it.
That's awesome. You've got this genre of funk that I think most people, especially if they're not following funk, they think of it as a genre of the past, but you're doing this differently and putting a modern spin on it. Like, where do you find that inspiration? Like, what are you consuming, I guess, maybe, to develop this new sound?
Well, I mean, I love all dance. I mean, I love all music, obviously, but I'm really, really into, as much as I listen to, you know, P-Funk and Stevie Wonder and bands like that, I love Daft Punk too, as well, you know, and bands like that, very modern dance music bands, a lot of DJs. So yeah, DJ culture I'm really fascinated by too as well. And I actually go out, as well as my full band, which is Freekbass and the Bump Assembly. I've started touring more. We're calling it Freekbass Solo Grooves, which is with basically the mentally easiest way to think about it is a DJ that plays bass. So I go out with all my gear, kind of what I kind of do on Twitch in a way. And like I just did there's a really big music festival in Chicago called Sacred Rose, and they hired me to come out and do this. And it was in this thing called the Laser Dome. They took it was in a stadium, but the thing that, you know, the teams practice in those big domes, they turned that into like this whole, I'll show you guys a picture of it in a minute. It was like crazy looking inside, but this whole laser world. And
it's like projecting onto the
here, let me show you. It's going to be so much easier to so anyway, so I'm doing more and more. This is what I was playing inside of.
Wow.
Right,
that is so cool.
Let's see, I think that's kind of what it looks like when it's moving. It was that type of thing.
It looks like outer space.
Yeah, very, very outer space. So it was very, very cool. So I'm doing more even solo shows as a DJ / bass player, where I kind of incorporate the funk and live bass playing into like kind of DJ kind of culture world too as well. So it's been real exciting. I mean, you're right. I'm glad you bring that up, because, you know, a lot of people do think of like funk and 70s and all that kind of stuff, but not only just me. I mean, there's a band that we tour with a lot. They're called Lettuce, and they're touring all over the world. They tour the same circuit that we do, and they were nominated for a Grammy last year. So the funk is definitely evolving. It's not like just stuck in this time period. It's definitely a new thing. You know, I mentioned bands like Daft Punk. I mean, that's straight up funk music, and you know, hip hop artists too a lot. You know, like when I was a kid, you know, like I mentioned, I was in a Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, and they just, all the stuff that they were sampling were all the old P-Funk stuff too as well. So it's definitely found a new generation for sure.
Yeah,
I think it's really cool because there's a ton of young people that are into these jam bands and the funk, and that to me showcases real music, because like you said, most of the time it's a collaboration right on stage. It's like live flow, which is really cool to see. And my brother is actually really into jam bands, and they're so they're very loyal fans, and what's neat about it is they can go see you guys 100 times and every show is completely different,
right,
which is what makes it very entertaining. Do you have any upcoming big shows that you're super excited about? I know you tour a lot. Do you have anything that's
well, we're getting ready to, and probably when the show hits is we'll probably be getting jumping right into festival season. So, that's kind of our bread and butter. And, so we've got a lot of stuff hasn't been announced yet. So I have to be careful about what I say, because not just because of our band, but because of, the whole festival hasn't announced yet. But, we're going to be doing a ton of stuff at festivals this summer, touring, just like we always do, all over the place. So just, keep an eye at the old freekbass.com is probably the easiest way.
Yeah, and if there are any announcements between now and when we release, we'll make sure that we include it for the show
sure.
notes.
Yeah. And that, like I said, we do have a big show. We have our Funksgiving show coming up, but that'll be after this show. I mean, your show won't even be out yet. That's why I was like, I can mention that, but it won't even be out yet. Yeah. So
I'm excited for that though.
Yeah,
you guys should come. It's really fun.
For
And
sure.
have you been to Ludlow Garage, either one of you, yet?
I haven't.
It's a very cool venue. Yeah.
I've heard,
sorry to say that I haven't, because I need to go.
So much about it.
Well, Ludlow Avenue, obviously. Yeah. So it's like it's kind of, you can make it like a whole night there, too, as well. Ludlow Garage actually started, I think in the late 60s, early, like Allman Brothers and Frank Zappa and the Grateful Dead played there. Then it was closed forever. Maybe 10 years ago, they reopened it up, and it's in the same location and still got that feel. It's an underground kind of club, kind of like Ghost Baby is. Yeah. And there's a restaurant at the top, really good restaurant. So, and Ludlow there's so much stuff to do, so you can kind of make it a whole evening thing, which is kind of neat, Yeah,
I think my in-laws might have to watch my son that night.
Yeah, you guys, it'll be a fun show. We got a lot of cool surprises happening that night.
I heard the acoustics in there are amazing too. From one of my guitar
and if you have folks if parents come or whatever, there's there's you can stand right up at the stage, but there's also not really nice seating in there too, either way, depending on what, because they do a lot of jazz shows in there, as well as more rock and jam shows too, as well.
Yeah. What's just curious, what's a musician that someone who's getting to know you and they know your music, what's a musician that they would be surprised to hear that you listen to?
I am a fanatical Elton John fan.
Elton John, yeah.
Oh, I'm ridiculous with it. I've got Elton John Funko Pops. I've got, my wife got me a Elton, the Yellow Brick Road cover, the kind of that pink jacket he's wearing. They did a replica of it, and this company made replicas, and so I got one of those jackets, and of course listen to his music nonstop. I really wanted to go to his last show, but I was on the way, because he came to Cincinnati right before the pandemic, and I was on the road, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm that'd probably be one. When you think of a funk guy, you probably don't think me rocking out to Your Song, or Sammy and I keep saying we're going to do what's the one duet he does? Don't Go Breaking My Heart. Yeah. We're one of these days we're gonna do that on stage together. I'll do Elton John part, and she can do the Kiki D part. Yeah,
I love that.
Yes, I love that. Ooh, we should do it for Funksgiving, and we need to put that in our calendar. Yeah. The pants are very Elton John on brand.
There's the fashion side of Elton John too, as well. Yeah, he's definitely a performer. I mean, all the so many I don't know if this will be as shocking as Elton John, but I'm probably my first where I mentioned the bass player thing at the beginning of this interview, but in terms of a pop culture type thing that happened to me that made me want to be a musician was definitely David Bowie. Yeah. When I was a kid, I was sleeping on my mom's couch. I was probably half awake, half asleep, and then the video for Ashes to Ashes came on, and I'm kind of what is, so I was as well as getting the music part, which was really tripped out, I was also getting that visual thing, and I was it kind of happened together, and so huge, I'm a fanatical Bowie fan too, as well. So a lot of British stuff, I like a lot of the British stuff as well.
His videos are almost in a dream state. So if you're waking up and looking at am I sleeping still?
Yeah, especially that. Which one I'm talking about? It's one where he's got the mime makeup on and all that stuff. It's and he's even got weird movements in it, and you're what's going on? Yeah.
That's super cool. So where's the best place? I know we've mentioned Twitch. I follow you on Spotify. And you said you're getting on
TikTok.
TikTok. Yes. Yeah. Where are the best places? And you've described the differences. Is there any more that we've missed as far as someone that wants to follow your music, where they can hear you the most? And
Yeah, I mean, I think of those two, Twitch is super easy. It's at Freekbass, FREEKBASS. Same with Twitch. Same thing. Twitch.tv/Freekbass. Those two are good sampling because again, TikTok's more like if you just want a quick little fix, see what I'm doing. You can, you know how it's always like this constantly in TikTok. So you can kind of come in there and say hello, and if you want to kind of get more an immersive part of it, go over to Twitch too as well. Those two, I think, are the two biggies, right, for starters. And of course, freekbass.com, which covers, I'm on Instagram at Freekbass, I'm on YouTube for all those places too as well. So, so any Twitter, everywhere too as well. So, yeah.
We just saw before the show, Brad and I were looking on the Spotify, which I was happy to see on Spotify, where it said someone can contribute, fans can contribute. Is that the only place that they can contribute, or is there stuff on your website?
What's the best way to support you as a musician?
Well, both with TikTok and especially Twitch. Like the thing that's really cool about Twitch, they have this kind of ecosystem where people subscribe to your channel. And they call them subs. And when you become a sub, you get like extra emotes. You don't have any commercials anymore. There's like little perks that come with it. And if it's good. It's priced really nice too, because it's first off, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you get a free sub, because Amazon owns they're like the big owner of Twitch nowadays. Yeah. So they keep it kind of like on the down low, but Amazon is the one. So you can, if you're an Amazon Prime, you get a free sub of any channel you want each month, and people can give what they call bits, which is like they're like these emotes that you get money for that too or whatever. So becoming a subscriber on Twitch too as well, and it's not just about like the financial side of it. It's like it makes it more of a community thing too as well. Like you get a special badge if you're one of my subscribers that changes each month, like the color changes and the design each month. So it's really kind of cool interactive thing. Same with TikTok, you can do stuff on there too as well. So that would be the immediate thing I would probably say, is to do that. Just follow me and subscribe to all my channels. You can, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That doesn't cost anything. You just hit the subscription button. So anything just to stay in touch, because they're all Freekbass, but they're all different sides of what I do, kind of,
Yeah, I love the variety. They can see in depth and across the board. Yeah, I'm so excited to try out Twitch. I can't wait.
Yeah, Twitch is awesome, and it and it's become so much. There's obviously the gamer thing. That's still their bread and butter. Don't let me kid you. I mean, that's like when you go to the San Diego TwitchCon, it's like overwhelming in the gaming side of stuff. But there's also like cooking channels that are huge on there. I mean, like some big Twitch streamers that are like have these cooking, like massive following cooking channels. There's talk show. There's this one guy, God, what's his name? I think his name's Kyle Forever, but he's a gecko that does a talk show. And it's with old school, with like the number you call in, like a 1-800 number, and he's fully dressed like a gecko, plays it totally, plays it totally straight, and he's got like, I'm assuming a green screen. It looks like he's kind of sitting in a swamp with a little telephone next to him, like Dr. Drew from like late 90s style. And he just sits there, and people call in and ask for advice from this full man looking gecko in there. And he's got like 50,000 followers or something on there. It's like this huge show on there. So,
well, I knew when you were on the guest list that you were going to be obviously much cooler than I am, but now I'm feeling like way dated. Like I'm not up on any of the trends here.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, it's still, and Twitch is even as big as it's starting to get, they're still trying to expand because people just don't know what it, it's like, and my mom wouldn't know if I didn't tell her what it was. She wouldn't know. Like she knows, of course, what Facebook is and Instagram, but Twitch is kind of like, what's that? So it's still a little bit of a training system with a lot of people, so.
Is there a proper term for the Freekbass community? Like, are they Freekbasses?
That's a good one. Now on Twitch, we call our subscriber community, we call them the Rescue Squad.
Rescue Squad.
Yeah,
okay.
We actually have we got Rescue Squad shirts done up, and there's a special emo to the Rescue Squad too. So that's our online community. But I don't know about like just in general, like bass heads. I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah. Or freakazoids. I don't know. Yeah.
I like the freakazoids. Vote for me. Yeah, that's one vote for me. That's really cool. So we've been asking, this is another tough question, potentially. We've been asking all of our guests if they could basically wrap up their I don't know, description of Cincinnati in one word. For me, I would say it's community. What was the last guess? What was the word that they used?
Catalytic.
Yeah. One word and or a sentence of how you feel, Cincinnati is unique, just so we can help kind of knock away the stigma.
If I had to, maybe I guess my word would be talent.
I like it
because there's so much freaking talent here, and like people don't realize. I don't think outside of Cincinnati how much talent. I brought up some of the points with the King Record stuff and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, and not just in the music community, the acting community, and the just go on and on. So yeah, I would say talent.
I love that. That's
business
perfect.
community. Obviously, P&G's like God, you know what I mean? And that's everywhere. And it's that's Cincinnati-based company too, so.
What about the future of the city? I don't think we've touched on this, but how do you see the city evolving the next 5 to 10 years?
And it could be in music or just in general. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just so, I love how much especially the downtown, I'm a downtown urban person, and how much that side of the city keeps evolving and getting bigger and bigger. So, I mean, hopefully hopefully they just keep expanding on that. I think that's the most exciting thing. You guys both being real estate agents, I'm sure you appreciate that and see that. I mean, it's amazing to me that some streets that literally like 4 or 5 years ago, like you wouldn't want to walk down at 10 o'clock at night now, or, $300,000-$400,000 condos or houses on there. I'm sure you know more than I do on that. So it's and that's encouraging that there's the arts community just seems like it's really things like Blank obviously, which just happened. It just seems like that's really, really thriving again. It feels like we're kind of going through like a little bit of almost like a renaissance in Cincinnati right now. It really does, So when you have the mayor on, you can obviously talk to him about that too as well. He seems like a very forward-thinking person, which I'm really excited to have him in office too. So that's a pretty cool thing too as well.
Yeah. What I've seen from him so far, I like that he is willing to address the things that need to be addressed, but he is such a good spokesperson for the city.
Yeah, he really is.
Hype man,
even like the stuff he did, the Super Bowl and stuff like that. The only downside of that, I mean, this is me predicting, but I have a feeling he's going to be moving on to higher things. That dude's got like so much freaking charisma. I think he's going to be moving on to higher things sometime in the next few years too as well. So yeah.
That is, it goes back to your word, talent. We are exporting talent all the time.
There you go. Sure. Yeah. We need a president from Cincinnati. Yeah. So there we go. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite neighborhood you like to hang out in your downtime? Which I'm sure you don't have a lot of downtime and you're traveling all the time. But do you have a little nook that you like to bounce around in?
Yeah, I mean, definitely East Side, Hyde Park, which is where I grew up a lot too as well. Of course, downtown OTR Clifton, Clifton was, why that's another big reason I think I play the type of music I do. Cincinnati, and on the music side, which we didn't really talk about much in this interview, but like, there's obviously a huge cover band scene here too, which is, and so there's almost like two types of musicians. You're the cover band musician or you're the original music type of musician. And for me, not judging either way, but for me, growing up, luckily getting exposed to Clifton area and all that, everything that went along with Clifton and UC and stuff, even when I wasn't even old enough to even be in a lot of these places that I was at, but I was just there for the music side of stuff, that had a big impact on me in terms of the style of music and what I wanted to do and be able to write music too, not just do other people's music, which is, anybody that makes a living at music, no matter what style you do, I'll have mass respect for. So again, I'm not judging any style of music you do, but just for me personally, as excited as I was about being a bass player and an instrumentalist too, like writing to me was like that. I was geeked on that just as much too as well. Yeah.
That's awesome. You were literally the perfect guest, and I had no idea you were so like gung ho about Cincinnati, just like we are. So I'm loving the Ohio against the world. Brad and I are gonna have to get Cincinnati against the world hats for our next episode. And start spreading the word. But we can't thank you enough for sharing your Cincinnati background, your music background, and all your success stories. And it was such a pleasure meeting you. And
thank you guys. I'm
speaking with you.
Yeah, I'm excited to see when the show pops and see where it goes. And it's great you guys are doing this, and more focus on the city is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Love it.
To all the freakazoids out there.
Yeah, to all the freakazoids,
I think
get on
Twitch.
Twitch.
That's what it is. Freakazoids. That's right. Yeah, you got
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
And that's a wrap. Cheers, folks.